There are clear signs that the universe is preparing prosperity for you, and most people simply ignore them. Have you ever felt a discomfort you couldn't name? An inner restlessness, as if something inside you already knew something your mind hadn't yet processed? That feeling, which many people call anxiety for no reason, may actually be the first sign that something big is about to shift in your life. Spiritually, this state is described as the gestation period before manifestation. The universe doesn't announce its transformations with immediate clarity. It first stirs your energy field, creating a kind of inner turbulence that forces you to pay attention. It's the same principle that happens before a storm. The air changes, animals sense it, nature responds before a single clap of thunder appears. Psychology calls this intuitive premonition. But great spiritual teachers call it a calling. And the problem is that most people, when they feel that restlessness, try to smother it with distraction, routine, or fear. And then the signal passes. The window closes. If you're feeling an unexplainable restlessness right now, don't push it away. Sit with it. Ask what it's trying to show you. Because the universe rarely shouts. It whispers first. And wealth, in every sense of the word, always begins with an inner whisper that you choose to hear or ignore. If you've ever felt this and didn't know what it was, comment down below "I felt it." You'll be surprised how many people have been through the exact same thing. There is something profoundly ancient in the relationship between human beings and animals. Long before any organized religion, indigenous peoples from every corner of the world already knew when an animal appears in an unusual way, out of context, or repeatedly in your path, it carries a message. This isn't superstition. It's a symbolic language the universe uses because it's universal. It cuts across cultures, eras, and languages. An owl that appears 3 times in the same week. A butterfly that lands on you in a moment of decision. A deer that crosses your road just as you were thinking about giving up on something. These encounters are not accidental for those who are tuned in. In shamanic tradition, animals are messengers between the visible and invisible worlds. In the context of abundance, specific animals appear as confirmation that you're on the right path or as a warning that you need to change course. The eagle, for example, symbolizes elevated vision and leadership. The fox, strategic intelligence and opportunity. The bee, collective building and prosperity through work aligned with purpose. The question isn't just which animal appears, it's what you were thinking, feeling, or deciding in the exact moment it crossed your path. The universe is contextual. It speaks to the moment you're in. If an animal has ever appeared in a striking way in your life, share it in the comments. These stories are incredible and can help other people recognize their own signs. There's a curious phenomenon that behavioral researchers have identified. Some people accumulate prosperity almost without noticing, while others work incredibly hard and stay in the exact same place. The difference is rarely about talent or effort. It's about the internal pattern. Spiritually speaking, there is a vibrational frequency that attracts abundance. And it's not made up of forced positive thoughts or affirmations repeated without conviction. It's made of something far more subtle, a deep, almost unconscious belief that life is generous and that you belong to that generosity. People who prosper without even realizing it share some striking characteristics. They rarely talk about what they don't have, they talk about what they're building. They don't ask for permission to dream, they dream and then organize reality around the dream. They treat losses as repositioning, not as punishment. And most importantly, they have a peaceful relationship with money. They don't worship it, they don't fear it. They treat it like energy, something that flows to where there is space and intention. If you're starting to notice these patterns in yourself, pay attention. It's not a coincidence. It's the universe calibrating your frequency for what's coming. If this content is opening something up in you, hit the like button now. It helps this video reach the people who need to hear it most today. Dreams are the most honest language there is. During sleep, the conscious mind, with all its filters, fears, and judgment steps back. And what remains is the purest field of your perception, the unconscious. And it's in that field that the universe frequently deposits its most important messages. Water in dreams, in virtually every spiritual tradition in the world, represents the emotional state and the flow of life. Clean, moving, abundant water, it's a sign that something is flowing toward you. Still or murky water calls your attention to what you're suppressing. Gold and shining objects symbolize value that hasn't yet been recognized, often your own value, which you haven't yet learned to charge for or offer to the world. And unknown places in dreams? Those are invitations. The unconscious showing you territories of life you haven't yet explored, possibilities that exist, but that you haven't yet allowed to become real. You don't need to be a dream interpreter to start hearing these messages. You just need to build the habit of, upon waking, spending 2 minutes in silence and asking, what was that dream trying to show me? The answer, most of the time, is already inside you. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Every week there's content that will help you decode the signals the universe is placing in your life. Intuition is often dismissed as something mystical, imprecise, or unreliable. But there is a deep science behind it, and when applied to the financial realm, it can be one of the most powerful assets you have. Neurologically, intuition is the result of thousands of patterns processed by the brain in a nonlinear way. It's actually a form of ultra-fast intelligence, one that arrives before logical reasoning because it doesn't need to pass through the filter of conscious thought. And that's precisely why it's so powerful. It isn't contaminated by fear, ego, or the need for approval. In the spiritual realm, financial intuition is the voice of the universe saying this direction has energy. When you feel you should or shouldn't make a certain investment, accept or decline a certain offer, enter or exit a certain situation, and that feeling has no rational explanation but is absolutely clear, that's not coincidence. That's alignment. The reason most people ignore it is simple fear of being wrong. And it's ironic, because intuition is rarely wrong. What's wrong is the mind that tries to replace intuition with excessive analysis at the wrong moment. If you've ever ignored your intuition and regretted it, and I think almost everyone has a story like that, comment "I ignored it" below. Let's see how many of us there are. In cultures that modernity insists on calling primitive but which actually possessed a deep wisdom about the nature of life, certain animals were considered direct messengers of prosperity. And what's fascinating is that even in cultures that never had contact with each other, the symbols repeat themselves. The elephant, in Hinduism and in various African traditions, is a symbol of memory, strength, and unshakable abundance. The fish, in Eastern and Mediterranean cultures, represents fertility, multiplication, and the continuous flow of resources. The turtle, in indigenous traditions of the Americas and in Taoist philosophy, symbolizes patience, protection, and wealth that grows slowly but lasts forever. Jungian psychology has a fascinating answer for this universality. They are archetypes. Primordial images that inhabit the collective unconscious of humanity. This means that when an elephant appears in your dream or crosses your path in an unusual way, it activates within you an ancestral memory, a code of meaning that goes far beyond your personal story. You don't need to adopt any specific belief system to recognize the value of this wisdom. You just need to stay open. Because when the universe uses the language of symbols, it's speaking to a part of you that is older and wiser than any thought you'll have today. Share this video with someone you know is going through a period of transition. It might be exactly what that person needs to hear right now. There is a period, usually quiet and little understood, that precedes every major life transformation. And during that period, many people start behaving in ways they themselves don't understand. They start reorganizing spaces without knowing why. They feel the urge to distance themselves from certain people. They lose interest in things that once felt important. They become more selective about what they say, who they spend time with, what they consume. Spiritually, this is the cleansing process that precedes the arrival. The universe doesn't place abundance into spaces filled with things that no longer serve a purpose. Before bringing in the new, it moves out the old. And you often, without consciously knowing it, begin to collaborate with that process. This strange behavior is actually instinctive alignment. Your deepest self already knows what's coming. And it's creating space. It's adjusting the external environment to receive what has already been granted internally. If you're in that moment right now, reorganizing, distancing yourself, redirecting, don't interpret it as a crisis. Interpret it as preparation. Because generally, the more intense that process is, the bigger the shift that's on its way. Hit the like button if this described exactly what you're living through right now. You are not alone in this process. You start seeing 11:11 on the clock. Then 222. Then the numbers from your birthday start showing up in random places, multiple times in the same week. Many people ignore it. Others get curious. But very few understand what's really happening. Carl Gustav Jung, one of the greatest psychologists in history, developed the concept of synchronicity to describe coincidences that carry meaning. He didn't believe they were random. He believed they happened when a person was in a particular state of consciousness, open, attentive, in the process of transformation. From a spiritual standpoint, numbers repeat when you are vibrating at a frequency that is in harmony with what the universe is organizing for you. It's not the numbers that carry the message, it's your state of perception that allows you to see them. Someone in a state of shutdown, distraction, or fear passes the same clock and doesn't even notice the 11:11. The mental state that attracts synchronicities is one of conscious presence, when you are awake to your own life, when your thoughts and intentions are aligned, when you stop living on autopilot. And it's exactly that state that also attracts opportunities, connections, and the prosperity that once felt out of reach. If you keep seeing repeating numbers, comment below which sequence shows up most for you. These stories are always revealing. This is one of the most concrete and at the same time most uncomfortable signs that something is shifting in your frequency. Suddenly, certain people act strange around you. Some drift away without explanation. Others start treating you with more respect, almost without realizing it. And you haven't changed anything externally. You haven't made more money yet, haven't changed jobs, haven't announced anything. But something has changed and everyone around you feels it. This happens because human beings are far more sensitive to energy than they rationally admit. Before any external change occurs, a shift happens in the field, and that field is perceived by the people around you, even if unconsciously. Those who drift away are generally the ones whose presence was anchored to the previous version of you. When you shift frequencies, the relationship loses its old point of balance. It's not necessarily malice, it's energetic incompatibility. And spiritually, that distancing is protection. The universe is clearing the ground. Those who draw closer or who change how they treat you are responding to the new version you're becoming. And very often, it's precisely those new connections that will carry the opportunities you've been waiting for. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. These topics are explored here every week in a way you'll be hard-pressed to find anywhere else. This is probably the most important topic in this video and the least talked about. Because most content about abundance focuses on what to do to attract it. But almost no one talks about what most people unconsciously do to push it away. There is a deep fear, embedded in the psyche of many people, of truly prospering. That fear rarely shows up clearly. It disguises itself as procrastination, self-sabotage, it's not the right time, or I didn't deserve this. It shows up when a real opportunity arrives and you find 1,000 reasons not to move forward. When money starts coming in and you unconsciously find ways to spend it all before it consolidates. Psychologically, this pattern has roots in inherited beliefs about dirty money, about wealth as something that corrupts, about the idea that simple people shouldn't want too much. These are family, cultural, and religious narratives that got written into the unconscious and that work against you even when your conscious mind wants to thrive. The universe may be preparing everything. But if there is a part of you that believes you don't deserve it or that fears what will change when you truly prosper, that part will find a way to block the arrival. Healing begins with recognition. Ask yourself, honestly, what do I really believe, deep down, will happen if I actually become wealthy? Leave it in the comments. It might be the beginning of something very important for you. Some spiritual traditions work with the concept of a power animal, a being from the animal kingdom that carries a specific energy and appears in your life to guide you through a particular phase. Unlike general omens, the power animal has a more personal connection. It shows up repeatedly, in dreams and in waking life, and its message is directed at your specific moment. In the context of abundance and wealth, certain animals have a particularly powerful presence. The wolf appears for those who need to trust their own intelligence and leadership in order to thrive. It represents the path of the achiever who walks with their pack but doesn't depend on approval to move forward. The snake, feared by many, is actually one of the most powerful symbols of financial transformation and renewal. It sheds its skin without resistance, and that is exactly what prosperity requires. The deer appears for those being called toward a wealth that arrives with lightness and grace, not through brute force, but through strategic gentleness. And the lion, of course, for those being prepared for a position of authority and leadership in what they do. If any of these animals has been showing up for you and you can't seem to ignore the recurrence, don't ignore it. Ask what that energy wants to teach you. Because the universe uses every available resource to communicate with you. Comment below which animal you feel has a special presence in your life. It's going to be really fascinating to compare. There is a small word that carries an enormous weight in people's lives: deserve. Or more precisely, the absence of it. Because the belief or the doubt about one's own worthiness is the filter through which every opportunity for prosperity passes before it materializes. Think of it this way: the universe presents an opportunity. But before it reaches you as a concrete action, it passes through an internal filter. And that filter automatically asks, do I deserve this? Am I capable of this? Is this for me? If the unconscious answer is no, the opportunity gets perceived as too much of a risk, as something too big, as someone else's luck. And it passes you by. Believing in your own worthiness is not arrogance. It's alignment. It's the understanding that prosperity is not a prize awarded only to those who worked the hardest or suffered the most. It's an energy that flows naturally to those who are open to receiving it, and that gets blocked by those who unconsciously believe they don't deserve it. Spiritually, worthiness begins when you stop comparing yourself and start recognizing yourself. When you stop apologizing for wanting a bigger life. When you stop shrinking your dreams to fit the expectations of those around you. The universe doesn't operate from scarcity. The human mind does. And the human mind begins to expand when you consciously decide that you are worthy of what is coming. If this section touched something in you, hit the like button. That simple gesture helps this content reach more people who need to hear this. Losing a job. Watching a business collapse. Having an investment fall apart. The immediate interpretation most people make is failure, punishment, bad luck. But there is a much deeper and far more useful reading of these moments of closure. The universe rarely destroys without purpose. When a financial door slams shut, especially when you did everything right, when there was no obvious sign of error, it's generally not a punishment. It's a redirection. It's the field reorganizing your path toward a version that isn't yet visible to you, but that is already being prepared. The problem is that in the middle of the pain of closure, it's nearly impossible to see the opening. The mind enters survival mode, analyzing what went wrong, cycling through guilt or anger. And in that state, you lose access to exactly the intuition and perception that would help you identify where the energy is being redirected. The sign that it's a redirection and not simply the consequence of a mistake is when, after the closure, you start to feel a clear pull towards something different. A direction you never would have considered before. A skill you've always had but never valued. A conversation that happens by chance and opens up a whole new perspective. When the universe closes, it is always opening. The challenge is having the eyes to see the opening before fear closes you down too. If you've lived through a closure that later turned out to be a redirection, share it in the comments. These stories are powerful and they help so many people who are going through this right now. There is a moment almost always overlooked, frequently misunderstood that appears before every major turning point. It's a period of inner silence. A strange stillness. A feeling that nothing is happening, that you're stuck, that you've lost your momentum or your sense of direction. Most people interpret that silence as stagnation. And then they make the most common mistake: they try to force movement. They try to do something, anything to get themselves unstuck. And in doing so, they interrupt exactly the process that was happening beneath the surface. In nature, the silence before transformation is absolute. The caterpillar doesn't fight inside the cocoon. It dissolves. And it's precisely in that apparently inactive dissolution that the complete reorganization occurs, the one that produces the butterfly. The oak spends months underground before it breaks through the soil. The diamond forms in absolute silence, under extreme pressure, with no rush whatsoever. Spiritually, when you enter that period of stillness, the universe is working at a level your senses haven't yet reached. It's connecting dots you can't see yet. It's preparing the ground for a manifestation that will surprise even you. Trust the silence. Breathe inside it. Because the moment the transformation is ready to emerge, you won't need to force anything. It will appear with a clarity and a force you never would have expected. If you're in that silence right now, comment here, "I am in the cocoon." You'll see that you are not alone in this process. We've arrived at the most practical topic and at the same time the most spiritual one of all. Because it means nothing to notice all the signs, feel the restlessness, see the animals, recognize the synchronicities, identify the redirection if you don't take the one step that turns all of it into concrete reality. That step is aligned action. Not frantic, desperate, or forced action. The action that is born from silence, from perception, from inner alignment. The action you take not because you're afraid of losing, but because you felt with clarity that it is time to move forward. The universe conspires. But it doesn't act for you. It prepares the ground, positions the right people, opens the doors, but you have to walk through them. Wealth, material, emotional, spiritual, doesn't land in the lap of someone who waits passively. It delivers itself into the hands of those who noticed the signs, processed the fear, honored the silence, and then moved with intention. The question that remains, after everything you've seen in this video, is not, is the universe preparing me? The answer to that is already inside you. You felt it throughout every single topic. The real question is, when are you going to start acting like someone who believes they deserve what is being prepared for them? That is the only step that separates those who receive from those who keep waiting. If this video made sense to you from beginning to end, share it with someone who needs to hear this. And subscribe to the channel, because this is just one of the conversations that happen here every single week. See you in the next video.